How's it going, everyone? Nick from Comic Culture here. Time for Nick at Night. Let's see what I thought about the books I read this week. You know how we do it. We're going to put the grading scale up. When I introduce a book, I'm going to put the cover of that book on the grading scale so you can see how they all stack up against each other. With that out of the way, let's get into these books, starting with DC. We're going to start with Night Terrors issue number 3 from Joshua Williamson. I actually like this issue quite a lot. I like the main run. The little side stories featuring the individual characters are okay. Some of them are hit or miss. Batman's actually pretty good. There's a couple gems here and there, but I would say it's like 50-50 if they're good or not. I'd probably just stick to this unless you have a favorite character and you want to see what they're up to here. But we have Deadman inhabiting Batman's body because he was just like trying to protect Batman from this big army of bads that were coming through. Damian Wayne actually showed up as well, and he's actually the two of them actually teaming up with an old school fedora wearing sleep kind of detective called Sandman. He's a pretty cool dude, and Damian had some pretty awesome little lines here, not exactly knowing who this character was, but Damian's introduction in this was well received to me. So it's an interesting thing. They're trying to stop Insomnia for taking over the world. Insomnia is looking for this Nightmare Stone, and this Nightmare Stone is hidden inside, presumably inside the dreams or something like that of heroes, but there's also villains involved too with this whole nightmare, so it's kind of confusing to me. Now, we have this new introduction to this character, Sandman. Sandman is like a dream expert. He was dealing with this concoction back in the day that was able to put you kind of like in this in-between zone between awake and sleep and dreaming. And so they think that there's going to be some clues in that area. So he's experimenting with that, sending Deadman in Batman's body and Damian into that zone to do some detective work, to do some exploration. And so while they're in that dream state, it's up to Sandman to keep them safe. And of course, we have Insomnia and his forces attacking them. So it's a pretty cool thing. I do like the concept. I like some of the nightmares that our heroes get into, and Damian Wayne's there, and I love that guy. So pretty cool book. Check out issue number 3. Stick to the main run. You can't lose. All right, we're going to jump over into Marvel real quick. We have Avengers issue number 4. Now, I did like issue number 1 and 2. Issue number 3 was like a hard left turn. I didn't know exactly what the heck's going on, but we have this new villain team inhabiting the Earth, taking on each city, and they've kind of posted up, and our heroes kind of analyzed the situation in the last issue, and now each one of the heroes is kind of going after very specific villains based on their power sets. And so, we have someone that's raising the dead, and so Scarlet Witch is over there. We have more of a godlike worshiping kind of a villain, and so of course we have Thor over there, so on and so forth. Part of our team is actually attacking the area where they came from. It's like this big city in the sky called the Impossible City. And so we have Black Panther, we have Falcon over there trying to uncover some details there. So what was kind of boring and predictable is we have so many little things happening at once, or not little things, big things happening at once. So we only get to spend about, 2 or 3 pages on each hero attacking this villain or taking on this villain. And these villains are just wiping the floor with our heroes right now. There's really nothing they can do. I mean, every single one of them is in a bad way towards the end of this book. Even our Black Panther and Falcon, who's trying to do some more reconnaissance work over in the Impossible City. So, I don't really know what they're going to do to get out of this. It's an interesting story, but they're all up against the wall right now, and none of them know what to do. And so there's this sense of doom that the book has towards the end. But, I still enjoyed it overall. Am I liking the story? Not really, but I had some enjoyment out of it after reading the issue. Let me know if you guys are reading the new Avengers run. Did you like the first couple of issues more than these last 2? Let me know down below. All right, let's get into the Ghost Rider and Wolverine crossover here. We have Frank Miller on the cover. Pretty interesting Wolverine, if I do say so myself. This is a really cool book. So there's a lot of history between Wolverine and Ghost Rider, Johnny Blaze. And this book actually opens up with Johnny Blaze exploring this weird, satanic death, I'll call it. And Wolverine is actually doing the exact same thing. And we just learned in that moment that something that they fought together, some kind of prime evil that they fought in the past, is now coming back and showing itself. And so they might have to team up again to maybe take on this threat once more. We do get a cool flashback, a little origin story of this like demon child who's out of place, and he's in a foster system, and they take him to Xavier's mansion, and there's no place for him there because he's not a mutant. He's like possessed in a way. And so he is really upset when he gets kicked out of there, because it's like, where else can I possibly go? So we do have some pretty awesome artwork in here, some gruesome stuff. I don't know what it is, but I feel like these kinds of stories would land better or hit better towards the fall. You know, around Halloween time, we get this demon thing attacking everybody, killing some stuff, and I feel like the impact would just be better, you know, during that time of year. But really cool action. I like the idea of Ghost Rider and Wolverine teaming up. I like the fact they have some history here. This demon or whatever it is not a mutant, and so I think that's a pretty cool little twist. These guys' personalities are pretty interesting, so I can't wait to see how they team up and what they can do. And yeah, I'm actually excited to see where the story goes. Did you guys read this one? What'd you think? Miles Morales Spider-Man issue number 9. First off, really cool cover right here. Spider-Man in over his head a little bit, taking on this Hobgoblin variant right here, who's kind of brainwashed and after this certain technology in the Beyond Corporation's arsenal. So he's actually looking for some kind of mind manipulation technology. I'll let you read it to get the full details of it. And, you know, Miles is in here trying to stop him from doing that. He notices that he's brainwashed in a way, and so he's trying to snap him out of that and win the day. Awesome artwork in here. It's probably the strongest thing about Miles right now is the artwork inside this book. Absolutely spectacular. Really cool splash pages. This issue was not like restrained in the art, but we definitely had a little less full, like double page spreads, which I loved in the previous issues. We get some cool stuff in here. The ending of it got me a little like, oh man, we're going in that direction. I thought we were done with that chapter, but you know, here we are. We're still talking about Beyond and the things that have come out of that era. The other thing we're dealing with right here is kind of his post-traumatic stress. Basically, Miles recently has gone through so much stuff. They're introducing this anxiety, and this anxiety that's always inside of him, and his spider sense is completely jacked up because of it. So he can't really differentiate between like acute threats and chronic threats because he has this anxiety inside of him that's just constant chronic threat. So he can't use his spider sense as efficiently as he could before. They're leaning very heavy into that theme in this book, which is fine, but like, you know, it comes up all the time. And, you know, we'll see how he gets around and dealing with that. But Miles Morales Spider-Man, pretty good run so far. Amazing artwork in here. If you're tired of the Spider-Man books, ASM, and whatever else, jump over here and give this one a try. Then over in Boom Studios, we have The Seasons Have Teeth issue number 4. Just went ahead and got it online because, I don't know, it's probably never going to show up. So this book was really cool. So the premise of the book here was we had this guy growing up. He was going to be a photographer. He met this woman, he fell in love with her. And the world that we live in right now, there's actually avatars of each season. So this is a 4-issue run, and so each issue is dedicated to one of the seasons. We learn a little bit more about this character's backstory and the tragic relationship with his wife. His wife was terminal. I think she had kidney disease or something like that, and she was slowly dying, and he actually rose to fame by taking photographs of her and publishing it, kind of ignoring her own well-being in a way, and got some notoriety because of those dramatic photos. So this issue here deals with winter. Winter is actually a force that is basically freezing everybody out, killing people literally on the streets. And our main character has taken it upon himself to photograph each of the seasons, and this is the last one on his list. Now, I will say the first couple of issues were a little bit more poetic, I think, in their execution. Like, I felt the meaning. I really loved issue number 2 and 3 specifically. Issue number 1 was kind of a slow burn, a little bit introducing us to the idea that we're going to be exploring. And then 2 and 3 really flushed it out. But I feel like issue number 4 really fell flat. The ending just seemed very abrupt. It didn't seem like I felt anything towards the end of it. We did meet another character who coincidentally had the same first name as his deceased wife, which I didn't really like that too much, honestly. And they shared a lot of secrets and some stuff like that that really didn't hit. So I feel like issue number 4 fell pretty flat to me. I loved issue number 1, 2, and 3. I felt like it just needed a little bit more, but I think it missed the mark. What do you guys think? Next book we're going to go over from Mad Cave Studios, You've Been Canceled, issue number 3. Now, this has been a really great series so far. We're only 3 issues in, but it's covered a lot of ground and it's heading in an interesting direction. It's kind of like AWA's Absolution that came out last year, but it's a little bit toned down. It has more of an anime kind of a feel to it. If you didn't read that book, another reference would kind of be if Twitch TV and Running Man, the old Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, if you smash those two things together, I think this is pretty much what you would get. The other reference that you can probably pull from this is Wanted. If you saw the movie Wanted or read the comic, we basically have an organization that has given people the power to nominate some scumbags out there so they could be canceled. Now, to be canceled means that all these assassins are going to go after you and collect the bounty for your death. And so it's an interesting way to take on the whole canceled theme that we have in our society now, instead of completely destroying their whole lives. This is actually like a murder on the internet kind of a thing. So, pretty straightforward premise, pretty interesting. It could lead to some pretty cool stuff. And we're following the main assassin right now, who was actually targeted due to some hacking that was involved. And he's exploring who hacked the system to make him the main target. He understands who that person is, their rationale behind it, and realizes the whole system's kind of flawed. They team up together and they're kind of taking on the system at this point. So it's a really cool story. I like the way that it's drawn. Again, it has this anime feel. So if you're into the manga stuff, this is a cool transition comic into like Western sized comics, I think, and then vice versa too. So check out You've Been Canceled. Issue number 3 is spectacular. The first 2 issues are great too. I think you're gonna have a blast with it. All right, let's jump over into Image Comics. We had the Invalid Gang Massacre issue number 1. So this is from Chris Gordon and Jacob Phillips. Now, I did not continue into That Texas Blood saga. I read probably the first 3 or 4 issues. I felt like it was kind of dipping down out of my interest, and then I dropped it, but then I heard it got way better and it's a great read, so I need to go back and check this one out. First off, props to the team. The coloring and drawing on this is absolutely spectacular. The pages that they use like old-timey ads on here too. And this is like, I want to say it's the closest thing I can think of is like newspaper feel. It's definitely got a real coarseness to it, and it's a little bit heavier and different. So like newspaper feel would be appropriate. Just for a quick description of what it is, the coloring and the line work and stuff, I love the way it pops on this kind of paper stock. And so big props to the creative team for doing that. We're following in the Invalid Gang, right? We have an outlaw who's constantly robbing banks, terrorizing this town, things like that. And he's trying to go straight. He's been doing this forever. Maybe he wants to move on, things like that. The town that he's been terrorizing, the gang's been terrorizing, has had enough, and now the new ranger in town is stepping up and taking things into his own hand because of a brutal murder over at the bank. They're blaming this gang, and now they're on a really, really harsh revenge mission right now to go find the gang, take them all in. So very, very cool book. I'm really excited about this book going forward. I need to go back and read That Texas Blood. This, I assume, takes place much earlier than That Texas Blood, because I remember that being a more modern book. But let me know if you read that and then you jumped into this one. Where are we? What's the story? Is this like a relative of somebody from that other run? Let me know. All right, staying in Image Comics, we have Nightclub issue number 6 from Mark Millar. I couldn't get a physical copy, so I went ahead and read it online. And this was an okay conclusion to the series. It is issue number 6, so we're closing out here. Cool story overall. I do like the approach of like new teens gaining power. So how do they do that? Like, how do they accept that? We've seen it in Spider-Man. We've seen it in Miles. We've seen it in so many other places. Invincible. I mean, just name it, right? We've had a lot of examples of teenagers getting powers, how they balance their personal life, school, relationships, all that stuff. I like the way they handled it in here. They kind of brushed everything aside and like, kind of screw this. We're going to be heroes. We're going to do the right thing, but we're going to skip all this crap. And they didn't spend a whole lot of time dwelling on it, which was interesting. They did introduce a couple of issues ago this real badass like vampire villain and team that has been roaming around. They're ancient. They've been just wiping everything out, and they got on their radar. And so they're in the situation now where this gang is like threatening them and their families. And so, what are we going to do about it? So this issue here explains their retaliation efforts, right? They're going to attack them while they're not expecting it, kind of a thing. It doesn't exactly go according to plan, but things get wrapped up towards the end. I would have liked this to be tied in a little bit closer to The Big Game, which is this giant universe that this creative team is putting together, Mark Millar's putting together. There wasn't really any kind of connection that I perceived in there. And I think they missed a great opportunity to kind of sew in some of the other stories that he's been telling recently into that run. But we do get, I think, a highlight of them inside of The Big Game issue number 1. So it's there. It's just not really in this series. But if you want to see another set of teenagers get superpowers, like being vampires, and how they navigate those waters for 6 issues and then play into a bigger game, check out Nightclub. It was actually pretty cool. And the last book we're going to go over today is Swan Songs issue number 2 from W. Maxwell Prince. We have Casper Wingard on here. And this book was absolutely brilliant. Now, it actually highlights a relationship. There's this young love. They met at a grocery store, and they're telling their origin story as if they were in some kind of a couple session, or they're explaining the story from their different perspectives. What's really cool is we have like the page I just showed you right here, where the art style is very innocent, very modern, everything like that. But then you just know there's all this like mental manipulation and combat going on between these two now because they're in the middle of a divorce. after all this time. And so we get this kind of flashback, flash forward in a sense of their mental state. And each person is kind of winning one argument over the other. And whenever they win, they kind of take the other person down, metaphorically speaking, in these combat situations. And so we really get to see the different stages of this relationship. There's like that first introduction, there's that passion period, right? There's that excitement, getting married, moving into a house, developing a relationship, being inseparable, doing everything together, right? Sitting on the same side of the table, sharing toothbrushes, things like that. All those disgusting things that couples do when they first get together. But then, man, there's just always this bag of snakes that just unravels, and there's these combat situations that play out through this entire story. It's about relationship drama. It's about falling out of love. It's a very emotional book. It's something that's probably universally relatable to everybody, and it just shows the slow decline of these two people in this relationship. Very beautifully written, amazing artwork in here, completely sells the story. Very, very emotional. And it was just a great book. So if you're into W. Maxwell Prince, if you like Casper Wingard, if you like Ice Cream Man, and you like other things like that, little comics more on the emotional side that pull out all those emotions and things like that, you can't go wrong with Swan Songs. And check out #1. That was awesome as well. But guys, that's everything I read this week. I hope you liked that. Let me know down below in the comments what your favorite books were. While you're down there, hit that like button. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button and check out the join button. I would really appreciate it. But as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all down below in the comments.